I'm David Barton-Grimley, Strategy Director for FinTech here at 11FS. And in this series, in collaboration with Visa, we are shining a light on FinTech trends in different parts of the world. In this half of the series, we're looking closer at Europe and taking a deep dive into everything from e-commerce to digital wallets and AI. In each episode, we will explore a particular country or region within Europe to explore each topic in more detail. So in this episode, we're looking at the rise of digital wallets in Western Europe. As we all know, digital wallets aren't new at all, but with the rise of mobile technology and customers turning more and more to digital and contactless payment options post-pandemic, the market is set to grow and grow and grow. Digital wallets are set to account for up to 30% of e-commerce transactions in Europe this year, going up to over 50% in the UK alone by 2027. So they are not going anywhere, and we want to peel back the curtain on their rise and success and see what might be next on the horizon in this space. So to have this conversation, I'm delighted to be joined by a panel of fantastic guests. Firstly, a big hello to my co-host from Visa, Eddie Onaga, Vice President, Head of Digital Partnerships at Europe. Welcome to the show, Eddie. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role?
Thanks, David. And I'm excited to be here again. I lead Visa's digital partnerships team in Europe, where we're focused on driving payment innovation and growth with our big tech partners. I've been with Visa for about a decade in a variety of product commercialization roles across multiple markets, including leading Visa's product team in France and Belgium, launching Visa Debit in Germany, and driving digital product commercialization in the US. I'm very excited to be here today with the partners talking about digital wallets.
Awesome. It's great to have you back, Eddie. And next up, we have Dennis Oran, Head of Payments Partnerships at Google. Thanks so much for joining us, Dennis. Can you give us an outline of your role at Google?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I lead the Payments Partnerships team for Google's consumer payments business in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And my team focuses on partnering with the companies in the payments ecosystem to bring the best of Google's payments offerings to users in our region.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you here. And last but not least, we're joined by Bard Slatterid, Director of Strategic Payment Partnerships at Vipps. Thanks for being here with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Vipps, Bard?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm heading up the strategic payment partnerships work. Basically, I handle all of our sort of external stakeholders when it comes to payments. That would be schemes, it'll be banks, it'll be technical vendors, it'll be acquirers, and basically all the partners that we need in order to perform the payments that we do in our wallet. Yeah. There's a multitude of connection points out into the world of payments.
Awesome. It's great to have you, Bard. Right. So before we dive in, just a disclaimer and a reminder, listeners, that the views or opinions of our panel are their own. They don't necessarily reflect those of the companies they're representing. And as always, nothing we say should be taken as tax, financial, or legal advice. So please do your own research based on the things we're all saying here as a panel. And on that note, let's get started. So, Eddie, I'm going to come to you first. And it'd be great if you could start us off with a bit of a Visa position. Why do you believe the mobile payment and particularly the digital wallet space in Europe, especially Western Europe, is so exciting and growing so fast?
Yeah, absolutely. Mobile payments are an incredibly exciting space, and they have been for quite some time. At the heart, they offer the opportunity for consumers to have an enhanced payment experience with excellent security. When we think about that user experience, the first thing many of us will think about is that superior checkout experience, especially compared to cash. It can be faster and more seamless, both in face-to-face and e-commerce, using something that many of us have on us at all times, our phones. That said, the superior experience can also extend to consumer interactions before the transaction happens and after it. For example, before a transaction is made, a mobile digital wallet may surface up offers or recommendations. And after a transaction, the digital wallet may provide the ability to see details on that transaction, including where it was made, how much it was, etc. And then in terms of security, mobile digital wallets can provide layers of protection for consumers. For example, when Visa cards are used in mobile payments, the card is tokenized, replacing sensitive personal data with a cryptographic key, which enables greater levels of security. Visa just celebrated issuing our 10 billionth token. And the use of other security features on the phone, such as biometrics, further enhances mobile payments. Visa recently announced Visa Passkeys, which will allow consumers to bind their credentials to their device and leverage the device's biometrics using FIDO standards. So I've talked a bit about why consumers love mobile and digital wallets, but these can also be a great proposition for merchants. And in particular, they can provide higher conversion rates and lower levels of fraud. Globally, we estimate Visa tokens have generated more than 40 billion in incremental e-commerce revenue for businesses and saved $650 million in fraud in the last year. Merchants are additionally able to leverage Visa's authentication framework to receive liability shift on e-commerce transactions made with more secure biometric authentication, made possible by mobile devices. So net, by providing a great experience and security for consumers and higher sales for merchants, it's no surprise that we're seeing great growth in the mobile wallet space in Europe. A recent Visa study across 9 markets in Europe showed that 72% of Europeans are already actively using mobile wallets.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. I mean, based on what you were just saying there, it's clear to hear that so much payment innovation is kind of wrapped up under the term digital wallets. And so actually, I think it might be worth taking a step back before we go deeper into the conversation and actually just sort of ask the question, well, what actually is a digital wallet? Because I hear so many different definitions, and it would be wonderful to hear actually, the difference between Bard, for example, the way you look at it, and Dennis, also the way you look at it at Google, right? Because they're almost maybe slightly different things. So Bard, let's start with you. So, what is a digital wallet and how does it actually differ from like just a mobile payment operator, or are they kind of the same thing?
Yes. So basically, what is a wallet is a big question. Is how long is a string? I guess the word wallet sort of points back to something physical we all had in our pocket, where we put our money in, or we put our IDs, our driver license, or credit cards, or whatever. It was a place where we held stuff, basically. And I guess the digital wallet is sort of the same, but the digital wallets that are sort of around in the market is very, very different. Some are, to use to continue with the wallet analogy, some are really thick and some are really thin. And a wallet, I don't really think about our product as a wallet. It is a wallet, but we're so many things. We're a PSP, we're an acquirer, we're a PayFac, we're a checkout solution, we're a payment instrument, Stage Digital Wallet, we're an e-money solution. I'm a pass-through wallet. I'm also a merchant of record, where I have about 400,000 sub-merchants in our system. So, and all of this is connected through this one app, which basically I can use for payments in a multitude of situations. There's other wallets in Europe. I can do a close one, Swish in Sweden, which is none of these things. They are basically just an account wallet. So there's a single account, single bank in that wallet. So very, very different. So I don't think you can define what a wallet is. In some cases, it is many things, and in some cases, it's very, very simple. Like I don't know, a small pouch to put your card in.
Yeah. I guess it's just changed so much from those earlier days, which is maybe where the definition comes from, where it's literally something that you preload money into, and then you then spend from that preload. It just sounds like we're in almost a different world. I mean, Dennis, is Google Pay is that a digital wallet or somehow different?
I'll tell you about Google Wallet, which even has wallet in its name.
Yeah.
So we launched Google Wallet in 2022, and right now we're live in over 90 countries and territories. And you can think about Google Wallet as a container that stores your digital payment cards, so the device tokens that Eddie was speaking about, or your other payments credentials, and then many other things. Today, you can add your boarding pass, event tickets, transit cards, even insurance cards into Google Wallet. So Google Pay is where you manage your payment credentials, but Google Wallet, in that sense, and the Android world is a bigger space for everything that you can put in your physical wallet. We want you to be able to also store in your digital wallet. And as Bard mentioned, physical wallet is something we want to leave behind, ideally, and we're not there yet. So, and our goal is to be able to create a digital wallet that's comprehensive enough that the users can comfortably leave it behind and just rely on Google Wallet.
And there must be all sorts of really interesting things that you could do at Google with that, maybe with the identity piece and, matching up with your email address and all of the information and data that you have on customers must make that also kind of a very, very compelling merchant side proposition, as well. As Bard was saying, and as Eddie was saying, there's like both sides of it, right? There's the value to the customer in that digital wallet, but then also the merchant side, which in some cases sounds like it's even more interesting, actually. The kind of things that you can do in that area. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the growth. I mean, Eddie introduced the idea that it is growing massively. So, we've got something like digital wallets are set to account for up to 30% of e-commerce transactions in Europe by 2024. By 2027, something like half of all e-commerce spend in the UK is going to be done through digital wallets. So, Bud, let's talk about both sides of it, right? Let's talk about the end customer and also the merchant. Why is it so popular? Why is it a better way of purchasing, other than just simply just plugging in your credit card on a checkout and making the payment?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's another big question, I guess. But so for the merchant, at least in our, sorry, I need to take this from sort of our point of view in the Vipps Mobile Pay. So when we launched back in 2015, or when Vipps was launched back in 2015, it was strictly a P2P solution. So basically, we solved a problem no one knew they had, in a sense. So and in Norway and Denmark, cash, I haven't seen cash for a decade, and I'm almost not lying. Basically, it does not exist in sort of day-to-day life. So my children have basically never had cash because it just haven't been used. So in 2015, when Vipps was launched and Mobile Pay was launched 2 years before in Denmark, the whole problem of settling between friends was solved with a very simple app solution that sort of just connected all phone numbers to a receiving account and a payment card, basically. So being able to then shift money around really quickly, really easily, without having to know anything other than the phone number of the recipient is very, very simple. Now, this obviously went viral, I guess, in the Nordics. And just put it into perspective, today in Norway, Vipps performs more than 80%, close to 85% of all transactions between private people, including cash. We are 99.7% of all instant payments in the Norwegian market. This is sort of, it's just, and you're basically financially excluded if you're not in Vipps, or you can be by choice, obviously, but it's the only way to sort of pay in a sense. So with that enormous P2P success comes the obvious venture into P2B. Now, if you have all the users in an app and they all have a payment card connected, and that card is safely stored, it's tokenized, as Eddie's been talking about, so been done one time, then with that token, I can do repeat purchases, very, very simple, again, without having to enter anything. So what we did really quickly was with the schemes to get the delegated authentication in place so that we can authenticate any payment transaction in our wallet and then basically just hand the card over to either a merchant for processing or processing ourselves. So with that simplicity, that's why it's very sort of, for merchants, it's really much easier. There's basically no drop-off, at least not for the sort of payment reason. Might people drop off for other reasons, but there's no reason to jump off a payment because of bad UX or having to type this or that or doing it 3D secure or whatever. So that's why it's really, really, really attractive for merchants, because conversion is really, really high.
Dennis, I'd love to get your view on this as well. Like, why do you think it's so popular in some of these markets?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, what I see is the convenience, the speed, the security of contactless transactions overall have really rapidly accelerated the usage of that. And many customers embrace digital payment methods as their primary mode. So some people leapfrogged, some people started with contactless, and then they're using digital wallets for transactions in store. And for me, I've been in the industry for a long time, and for many, many years, we've been talking about the rise of contactless and digital wallets. but this really happened during the pandemic. This was the catalyst for people to really change their behavior. Maybe they tried it for the first time and they liked it. So since then, people started to pay in stores with their digital wallets. And what is interesting there is that the seamlessness, the convenience of that experience becomes the baseline for the user experience. So they want to be able to also pay in a similarly simple, convenient way when they're checking out online. And if you think about the mobile payments experience that you can use, that device tokens provide on e-commerce, and when you pay with Google Pay using your tokenized cards, you also benefit from the ability of the unlock and the biometrics that are available on the device. So we see that the experience offline informing people's expectations for online, and then paving the way for growing of e-commerce with mobile payments.
Yeah, it's like once you've taken the friction out of the experience, it's almost impossible to go back. Why would you, right? The customers just get so used to it, the merchants get so used to it, and it becomes a virtuous repeating circle. But it is interesting to see that this adoption varies so much based on the market. So far, I think we've been talking a lot about Western Europe, and a lot of Bard's examples come from the Nordics. But if you look at other markets, like, I don't know, let's talk about Belgium, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Spain, for example. So Spain is still something like 47% cash usage. So there seems to be, I don't know, is a very strong cultural bias or proclivity to cash, which does still seem to be sticking in. I mean, I got to open it up to the panel here. I mean, is that a long-term thing? Or are we seeing pretty much all of these markets, moving into these more digital solutions? Or is anyone really holding back?
No. They're all moving in the right direction, just different speeds. You can't really. Norway and the Nordics have been cashless for decades. There's no reason to use cash. Now that's not the same elsewhere in Europe. Now in Spain you've got Bizum, which is a fantastic solution. Portugal is MBWay. In Belgium, as you mentioned, Ideal is now Wero, going to be Wero, but they've been around for years. So, but there's a larger sort of mix. In Norway, when it comes to one of the reasons why cash has disappeared was the local scheme, BankAxept. So it's a competitor to Visa and MasterCard, a lot cheaper. But that sort of drove the whole purchasing from, or the usage of cash onto cards, because the merchants wanted it now, because it was really, really cheap. So when merchants drive the shift to cards, and then basically that drives again into digital and wallets when it's available. But they're all going in the same direction. It's just, it takes a little bit. I mean, if you travel to Lisbon and look out the window of your nearest hotel, you'll see 75 bank branches or something like that. I mean, these are sort of the digitalization of societies, just moving in different speeds, but we're all going to get there eventually.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with Bard. I think there's probably two questions in there in what you mentioned. One is a trend away from cash, and I think that's going to be universal everywhere in the world. Then the form factor of what that electronified payment is going to look like may differ a little bit by country. So I think you mentioned previously that in the Netherlands, the uptake is of digital wallets in e-commerce is fairly low. And one of the reasons is that they have a system there around Ideal. Consumers are used to using Ideal, merchants are used to accepting Ideal. And so once you move past cash, you've created this other alternative system. Whether a new digital wallet is going to come in and interrupt it, not too sure. But I think the movement away from cash is going to be universal.
Dennis, any thoughts?
We see digital wallets as growing in all the countries you mentioned. So Google Wallet is also growing in those countries. And what we think is important here is to give choice to the users. So what helps adoption of different payment methods and digitization is if users have as many options to choose from in terms of products, in terms of different ways of paying, then we can help it grow. The other thought I have is for for growth in general, and also in these countries, we have a responsibility as people working in digital payments to make sure that people who are maybe skeptical about these products have a good experience when they use it. So whether it's fraud, whether it's friction. So we also have a responsibility now to meet user expectations where they are, so that once they try it, they come back to these products.
Yeah, I would say particularly, the unbanked, people who are very new to digital and not familiar so much with using cards. And I guess there's a big maybe B2B component in there as well. I mean, that's not something for today, but the B2B adoption of digital wallets through business supply chains is also something I think that's very, very interesting in the area. I think one final point, just to conclude this section before we move on to the next, Dennis, you mentioned, pandemic and the adoption since then. What does anyone think would be the next big thing that will accelerate adoption throughout Europe? Is it regulation? I mean, there's PSD3 coming on. Is it a combination of factors? Any thoughts from anyone?
When we look at digital wallets and what can go inside a digital wallet, what we hear from users is identity. And you've mentioned this before too, is really what's top of mind. That's one thing, that's one piece of plastic that you don't feel comfortable leaving home without at the moment. And there's a lot of progress in the space in our region, in the European region. But that's one area we feel that would be the fundamental change that's really helps digital wallet and digital payments take off. And from our perspective, we already see this happening in the US. So in the US at the moment, some users can add in some US states, users can add their state-issued IDs into Google Wallet, and they're able to travel with that. So they can use it in a TSA, a pre-check. So this, for me, is fundamental. With the ability to have your digital identity, then you can really see people feel much more comfortable, and the use cases grow for digital wallets.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Countries that have identity card solutions are just doing so well. I mean, it continues to be a political hot potato in the UK for some bizarre reason. Our former Prime Minister very recently made another statement saying that the new incoming Labour government should really think about ID cards and put that on the kind of front of their agendas. But it just continues culturally to be a real problem for us here in the UK, and I just can't wrap my head around why that's an issue. But I think that's such a good point, and I'm sure we could do loads and loads of podcasts about identity. Right, I want to move on to the next section.
Yeah, but I'd like to come in on that actually, because another driver for the Nordics is the availability and accessibility of EIDs. Because being able to, we wouldn't be able to create our wallets in the Nordics without the accessible EID solutions that everyone has. So with that, as a wallet, as opposed to Google Wallet, for instance, we actually enroll our customers into fully legal customers, and we are a licensed institution. We're an e-money institution, so I enroll both merchants and users, and I couldn't do that without the access to an EID. So in order to create Germany, for instance, is a problem in this respect because they don't have a uniform EID solution. So and UK the same, I guess. So for us, we couldn't actually move into the UK with our solution because I can't enroll you as a customer because you don't have a way to identify yourself to me. So EIDs and the development there has been really, really important to the products that we have built, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. Go on, Dennis.
I'll add one thing about the UK. We've enabled the ability to save your national insurance cards through our partnership that we did with HMRC, which is not identity, yes, but absolutely, but it's a secure credential, and you're able to save that into Google Wallet as a private pass, and then you need to log on to be able to access it. But for me, having lived in the UK for a long time, I thought this was a fantastic step in the right direction to be able to put a government issued credential into a digital wallet.
Yeah, that's really cool. And in the UK, it may well be as close as we're ever going to get to something like that. Right. Coming up, we look at the future of digital wallets in Europe and what they learn from the Asian market, where digital wallets are so dominant. We'll be back after this quick break, so don't go anywhere.
Visa's FinTech Fast Track program is streamlining the onboarding process for fintechs, enabling them to gain access to Visa's powerful capabilities and network. Visa and their enablement partners help fintechs launch and scale cards, virtual credentials, and disbursement programs. To learn more, visit partner.visa.com.
Welcome back to FinTech Insider Focus, where we've tracked so far the rise of digital wallets in Europe. And in this final segment, we're going to take a closer look at what they can enable, for whom, and what for success in the market might look like. But before we do that, but just before the break, I asked everybody a question, like what would be the single thing that would trigger the biggest change in the industry in the coming year, right? What, whether it's identity, as Denise was talking about, whether it's the pandemic, etc. But quite frankly, we would be a little bit remiss not to talk about the single biggest thing, which is news that happened on the morning of the day that we're doing the recording today, which is that Apple has reached a deal with the EU. On the case of how the payment system is either opened up or not, as the case may be, to rivals. So I think it'd be worth just spending a couple of minutes just to dwell on that. And I wanted to open it up to the floor. And Bart, I think you're probably the right person to start with, definitely as a stakeholder within this ecosystem. I mean, how do you think this affects you in the entire industry?
Well, it has a great effect. We've been sort of involved in this case for a long time as a local third party, interested third party in this case that the EU has been leading. And for us, this means that a very inaccessible part of the payer experience, the in-store payment experience, is opened up for us. Now we can actually, without having to trying to go around and circumvent the terminal payments, I can now also have my users use my wallet to pay at the terminal with the stored credentials or cards that has been enrolled in a HC system that we operate. So for us, this will give us access to about 2/3 of all transactions, so possible access to 2/3 of all transactions. Obviously, we're now in a competition game with the other existing wallets, whether it's Google Pay or Apple Pay that has been available. So we have to win our position by creating a good solution for our users. And if we do, then if we can, then that will sort of mean a lot for us being sort of the preferred wallet of choice in multi purchasing scenarios. So there is no one single. This is a great day for fair competition, and it's a great day for us in the payment landscape, and we can now sort of start taking on the big guys in a sense.
It's a starting gun for a new innovation race in payments, right? It's it's amazing.
Well, there's an irony in there somewhere. I mean, we have been working hard to get rid of the payment terminals, and now suddenly we're gonna go the other way, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie, must be very interesting for Visa to watch this, right, as a card network.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting news hot off the press this morning. Lots of folks who would like to enter the space that have been cautiously waiting on the side to see what the final commitments would be. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see how this shapes up, and generally echo exactly what Bart said around competition and what Denise mentioned around providing consumers with greater choice. That can only be a good thing for the payments ecosystem.
Yes, awesome. And Denise, to you for final word. I appreciate this is fresh off the press, but what's your view?
Yes, it's very recent news indeed. And at Google, we are focused on meeting users where they are, and our goal is to give everyone, everywhere, access to digital payments. Other than that, we don't have any more to share at this time.
Yeah, good stuff. No, it's fair enough. It's very, very fresh information. Okay. Now let's talk about what we were going to talk about for this final part, which is a closer look at what digital wallets enable, and maybe a look at a bit of the Asian market, which I think is very fascinating with super apps and what's going on over there. But to start this off, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about BNPL, because we're seeing flexible credit, BNPL, whatever you want to call it, being integrated pretty deeply into the digital wallet experience, especially for e-commerce. I mean, Bard, how do you see BNPL growing? Is it taking up like an increasing share of the payment space? Are people really choosing to pay in three, as it were, rather than using cards? And how does all that work?
Well, I mean, in the Nordics, I'm going to go out on a limb. I guess probably shouldn't, but it might look like be looking like it's already peaked in a sense, because the regulators are coming back in, sort of making sure that now in Norway you have to have a credit agreement with the user when you're doing a BNPL. That means you have to sign documents for every purchase, and then sort of takes away the experience that we've seen with Klarna and other players that are really delivering super fast solutions. So that's not possible anymore from a regulatory perspective. I'm not sure about the future of BNPL in my neck of the woods, because of the hindrances that are put in place for people to sort of accidentally end up in debt. So BNPL it's difficult to predict where it goes from here due to new regulatory requirements.
Denise, I'd love to know how Google is thinking about BNPL in your digital wallet.
This makes me think back to our mission. So our mission is to help make digital payments simpler and safer for the millions of people who shop with Google, and to give customers more optionality at checkout. Earlier this year in the US, we began actually surfacing BNPL providers at checkout in the Google Pay flow. And this is for online payment flows. And we are listening to user feedback. We're iterating on this. So it's very much similar to how we work. We try something, we partner with the ecosystem, and we see what the user reaction to it is. And this, we're doing exactly the same with Buy Now, Pay Later.
It's still early days. Yeah. Eddie, any views?
Yeah, I think to some extent we're seeing the normalization of BNPL. A few years ago, you saw a few big fintechs where that was how they defined themselves. And now if you speak to those same players and you call them a BNPL player, they'll object quite strenuously and say, no, we're more about commerce generally, and providing great experiences, not just BNPL. And at the same time, you see many traditional financial institutions then take up, provide those kind of installment capabilities. If you look at Visa, for example, we're enabling Visa installment solutions, which allows cardholders to seamlessly pay for items and then break that into installments at participating merchants. And so it almost seems like it used to be its own category of payments, and now it's kind of gotten normalized, and it will play a role in digital payments, but maybe not necessarily a standalone kind of driver.
Yeah, it is interesting you say that. I mean, one of those providers I imagine you're talking about is like Klarna, for example, who is really trying very hard to move into the super app space. We're a provider for commerce generally. It's not just BNPL. BNPL is the wedge. It's a payment method, for example, but it's only the start. And this links on to, I suppose, what I want to talk about next a little bit is where some of these business models go. If you look at in Asia, a lot of digital wallets really are that how should we say, like the base, the foundational layer for the super app. And it's very interesting. I was actually just watching the football yesterday, the Holland-England match, and I was so surprised to see the extent to which Alipay were advertising. I don't know whether anyone saw that. It's just absolutely massive. In the UK market, advertising some of these types of features that you see very, very prevalent out in Southeast Asia and China, for example. So there is definitely this enormous intrinsic link between being a single, one-stop shop place, shall we say, and a digital wallet out there. I mean, does anyone on the panel here see that really happening and taking off in Europe? Is that a thing?
I'm very I don't think so. I think I have a super app. It's the It's the operating system on my phone in a sense. I can download apps, the ones I want or need or have to have to replace that with, in a sense, one app or very much fewer apps. I don't see why that would sort of lock me into customer relationships I don't necessarily want to have or mix in a sense. And this is different again culturally. In Asia, if you're a merchant, as many are, when selling goods, then to have that mixed together with your sort of with your finances in general, they are underbanked to a larger extent than in Europe. So again, in my region, my kids got a bank account at birth, so it's not really. The needs are not there. It's not the same. So I think we all app makers with an ambition think they can be a super app for their customers in a sense, but it's just not going to happen. When you are maybe I shouldn't be that categorical, but I really can't see a super app replacing all my good apps from a diverse sort of suppliers side, basically.
That's a really interesting point, Bart. I think our research that we did with Ipsos shows that in general, consumers would love to have a single app covering a lot of different features, having a super app, but they're not willing to compromise on the UX and functionality of those individual components. So it makes that kind of hurdle to be a successful super app a little bit trickier. And I would agree that most big app providers would love to be that super app. That's the ambition. But to actually deliver on that's quite difficult.
You're right, Eddie. Yeah, there's cultural barriers. I mean, that research is so interesting. There's regulatory barriers. Maybe the answer in Europe is that what we define as being a super app is maybe slightly different. Maybe it's a little bit like in Deniz's world, the way Google operates in some senses could be a bit of an ecosystem, right? It's all centered around the idea that Google, you have access to so much data, as we were talking about before, and identity and everything like that. So it's less of maybe a defined super app that sits within an app. But how do you think, maybe, Deniz, about super apps and ecosystems?
Yeah, from a payments ecosystem perspective, payments are hyperlocal. What works in one country or one region absolutely does not translate to another country or another region. So I'm very much against just plucking an idea and bringing it here and assuming it's going to work. And internally, that's also something that we always discuss and communicate with various teams who get very enthusiastic about a solution that could be working really well in their geography. And we live by that. If you look at our products today, Google Pay in India is a very different product to Google Pay and Google Wallet that's currently in the market here today. So from my perspective, as we think about the user needs, we very much focus on the ecosystem that's in the region here. What are the user needs evolving? Who are the ecosystem players? Where are we heading as a group? And then how can we innovate based on what's relevant here? And the advantage I see personally being part of a global team is when I speak to a colleague in Sao Paulo or Tokyo or Singapore, I understand their challenges, I can get some inspiration, or I can problem solve with them on how to deal with our issues, but not necessarily bring exactly the same solution here.
Yeah, you're right. Every country, every region has such different requirements. So as we wrap up this podcast, I mean, we've been talking about lots of exciting things going on in the industry, not least the news this morning with Apple and the EU regulator. Eddie, I'd love to come to you first. I mean, what is coming up next for Visa? What are some of the things you're looking at releasing in the market?
Yeah, definitely. I think in this next year, our big initiative in Europe is around click to pay and passkeys, which I mentioned earlier, and providing that frictionless experience using your mobile device to make checkout in e-commerce, relying on your phone's biometric capabilities. And that's something that we're actively working on with our partners, as well as our financial institution partners, both issuers and acquirers, as well as other providers to bring to the market. So Really exciting news, and hope everyone can try it out soon.
Awesome. Bard, what's next for Vips?
Well, we've just been through 3 years of merger with a merger process. First with the EU approval, and then merging with mobile pay in Denmark and Finland. So we're now finally on one technical platform in 3 Nordic countries: Norway, Denmark, and Finland. So we recently released cross-border payments utilizing the card schemes. Payout systems, basically the Visa Direct and MasterCard Money Send, in order to send transactions across the borders. That's recently been released, and we're going to add Sweden to that. We're going to enter into Sweden with our app solution. We're not, taking on Swish is probably a bit of a stretch, but we will open up for Swedish users to download and become a customer in our platform, so that they can travel the rest of the Nordics and pay, and also reach any Norwegian, Dane, or Finn. So we're doing that, and then we're obviously doing the tap to pay solution. We've been working on that on both platforms, on iOS and Android. Limited obviously on the iOS because we haven't had access, but now we're getting it. So we're moving into that space, and then we need to scale. We're 12 million users in the Nordics. We have 400,000 merchants on our books, and we need to move beyond. So it's all about growing in all aspects and moving into new markets, basically.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of growth. And Dennis, final word from you and Google. I mean, what's happening next for Google Wallet?
We're very much focused on how we can grow digital payments. So we are trying to see how we can expand to more countries and more users. That's our baseline goal that continues in the following year. And we're very focused on reducing fraud and increasing conversion rates. So how we can bring in new functionalities and capabilities so that the conversion at checkout can improve.
Awesome. Thank you. And on that note, everybody, thank you so much. That wraps up today's discussion. Where can people find out more about all of you and your companies? Eddie, let's start with you.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, and more about Visa and our solutions at www.visa.com.
Awesome. And Dennis?
A simple Google search for Google Wallet, Google Pay, you'll be able to find out all about our solutions.
I love it. And Bard?
Yeah, also obviously on LinkedIn. So just connect. And if you want to learn more, and otherwise it's www.vipsmobilepay.com.
Awesome. And you can find me on LinkedIn at David BG. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you like what you've heard, follow our podcast and don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us to make it better and helps others to find the show. As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or FinTech Insider, or email podcasts@11fs.com. Thanks very much and goodbye.